My nurse girlfriend cheated on me and tried to trap me with a baby, but now she is jealous of my success and new love, and is begging me to take her back. At the age of 25, I met a nurse at a pharmacy. Initially, she appeared to be kind, and we quickly found common ground, sharing many aspects of our lives. However, after a few months, I was reassigned to a different district by my supervisor at the pharmaceutical company where I worked as a sales representative. In April 2022, she joined me in that district, and we began living together. The first 3 months were wonderful, but then my manager began to treat me poorly, and I stopped receiving my weekly allowance. During this challenging time, I had also applied for my master's program in drug development. As my work situation deteriorated, our relationship began to suffer. She started displaying negative behavior, arguing with me despite my efforts to remain kind. When I returned to my original city for job interviews, her behavior became increasingly peculiar. She began bringing me food, which was unusual for her, and expressed a desire to quit her job and move back to her hometown. Shortly thereafter, she took a pregnancy test and informed me that she was pregnant. At first, this brought me joy. However, when I inquired about the paternity, she was evasive. Upon my return from the interviews, she admitted to having cheated on me. I was furious and considered leaving immediately, but as I am against abortion, I did not want the baby to be aborted. I chose to remain supportive until the child was born, despite my growing depression and uncertainty about how to cope with the situation. I had already enrolled in my master's program but struggled to focus, completing only 3 out of 5 courses due to my emotional burden. In the months that followed, I discovered a philosophy that encouraged me to focus on my purpose and not on women-related issues. This new way of thinking helped me realize my own value and focus on my physical and emotional well-being. After my daughter was born, I conducted a DNA test that confirmed my paternity. Following this, I stopped communicating with the mother, informing her that any matters concerning our daughter should be addressed via email. She reacted angrily, accusing me of indifference and claiming that despite giving me a daughter, I seemed not to care. As I focused on my studies, I gained recognition from prominent research institutions in my country and received invitations to speak at conferences. My elder brother began promoting my achievements. The mother of my child expressed to my friends that she regretted her past decisions and claimed to have worked on herself, saying she would do anything to mend the relationship. However, I consistently redirected the conversation towards my plans to pursue a PhD. While I cherish my beautiful daughter and want to care for her, I have no desire to engage with her mother. She has conveyed to my friends that I now regard her as insignificant and has expressed her resentment and jealousy, particularly regarding my potential romantic interests. I am planning to enroll in a PhD program in drug development next year, having recently completed my master's degree. Over the past few months, I have met a wonderful young woman who is pursuing a degree in medicine and surgery. She genuinely cares for me and even buys books that I enjoy reading. Although I feel somewhat jaded and hesitant about relationships, this young woman is kind and values me. My ex-partner, on the other hand, is filled with resentment and jealousy, realizing that she has lost a valuable opportunity. I have come to the realization that I am only 27 years old and have yet to reach my full potential. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Story 2, my 24-year-old girlfriend and I, 25, have been dating for 2 years. A week before writing this, we had been spending a lot of time together and knew each other very well. I have had some issues in past relationships, so I am very forward and communicative because of my experiences. I have an irrational fear of clowns, which developed from a horror movie my dad used to watch when I was a kid. This movie had such an impact on me that I have been to the hospital for panic attacks due to incidents with clowns, some of which my girlfriend witnessed. One night, we went to a haunted house, and the clown portion affected me deeply. I mention this because my girlfriend knows well about my fear and how it impacts me. We had a big argument about her not working the past month. She expressed feelings of stagnation and depression, and I attributed it to her unemployment. In my experience, while working can be tough, being productive is a big driver of motivation and overall mental health. I am very blunt and have a bit of a struggle with empathy, so looking back, I was a bit rude. That night, after socializing with our friends, we went back to my apartment. She turned on a movie, and we sat together watching it for a while. I drifted off to sleep and was soon awakened by her, dressed in a full clown Halloween costume. This was one of the most terrifying experiences I have ever had. Falling asleep with someone I trust completely, only to be awakened by my worst fear, sent me into a full-blown panic attack. I couldn't breathe, even in my own home, and was paralyzed by fear. She not only targeted my weakness but continued tormenting me while I hyperventilated and soon was in tears, curled up on the floor, struggling to breathe. After what felt like forever, truthfully 5 minutes, she took off the costume, trying to comfort me and bringing me an inhaler, but she began saying that this was how I made her feel when I spoke about her not having a job. I truly loved her, we felt like such a perfect match, but to attack me so personally and without communicating the underlying issue beforehand, I have truly lost all trust in her. I told her to leave me alone and get out of my house. Of course, this didn't go over well, but I have never felt so betrayed by someone I loved. She hasn't spoken to me for the 2 weeks since, despite my efforts, and I am truly exhausted from trying. Am I the one at fault? Do I deserve this, or should I move on? Quick update, this was definitely premeditated. I spoke with one of her friends, who dates a good buddy of mine, and she told me everything. Of course, underlying issues I contributed to led to this, but it was all planned as a lesson. She bought the costume specifically and intended to prank me as a lesson. Her lesson brought up a lot of childhood trauma for me, and I don't have much of a support system for those things. I broke up with her once I heard her side. She was very frustrated, cursed at me, and said no one would ever love such a horrible person. The irony of the situation only made me laugh, and I realized maybe she could find a job in her newfound free time. In the past few days, I've decided to seek counseling and therapy for many of my trust issues, and ultimately I hope to work on my fear. Thank you all for your responses. Story 3. I had 3 male friends. They're not my only friends, but we were pretty close, and I've had relations with all of them. This stopped a few years ago. In fact, 2 of them are in long-term relationships with 2 of my best friends, and they are aware of our history. Now my boyfriend and I have been together for about a year, and it's been the best relationship I've had. The thing is, my boyfriend is a bit insecure because I'm his first, and he's also aware of my history with my friends. I assured him that this was in the past, and I no longer have any attraction to them. I even asked my friends never to talk about this again. However, the other night we were all hanging out, and I went out with a friend to get some things. When we came back, my boyfriend's mood was much different. He played it off, but I could tell something was bothering him. When we got back to my place, I pressed the issue, and he said my guy friends kept making jokes about how he got the leftovers and how he must be good if he can satisfy me the same way they couldn't. I was furious and confronted my friends. They kept saying they were trying to toughen my boyfriend up since I told them he felt insecure about them. My boyfriend kept trying to save face, saying things like the past is the past, but I could tell he was feeling down. I decided to cut off my friends because not only did they disrespect my boyfriend, but they also disrespected me by calling me leftovers. My 2 best friends kept saying it wasn't a big deal and that my boyfriend and I were overreacting. Update, it's been a long few days, but my boyfriend finally opened up. He said he's glad I cut off my friends and that he wasn't going to ask me to do it, but if I hadn't, he would have left. He said he doesn't want to break up over this as it wasn't something wrong I did, and he understands that most people have a past. He said it just became too real when my ex-friends opened their mouths. He's also upset with me because I told them about his insecurities, something I know was a terrible mistake. I apologized profusely and promised this would never happen again. He also said he feels inadequate and inferior. I assured him that he's way better than them and that he's all I want from now on. We kept talking for a while, and eventually, we hugged it out. He says he doesn't feel ready to be intimate again and asked me to respect that, which I agreed to. He also says he doesn't want to hang out with any of my former partners. He said he won't freak out if we run into one at a party or something, but he won't hang out with them, which is more than fair after what happened. One of my best friends reached out and apologized for what she said. She thought my former friends just mentioned our history, and my boyfriend got all insecure, but she didn't realize just how horrible they were. She said she broke up with him already. I haven't heard from the other friend. As for me, I feel absolutely disgusting knowing I let those guys touch me, and I know I messed up when I told my friends about my boyfriend's insecurity. Still, that doesn't excuse how awful some of your comments were. I take full responsibility for disclosing my boyfriend's insecurities, but most of you just wanted to shame me for having relationships in the first place. I didn't hurt anyone just for having group activities, but I did mess up by trusting the wrong people. Story 4. I broke up with my boyfriend of 8 years because I no longer see a future together. We had been dating for 8 years, since high school. We had grown and changed with each other, and our relationship was wonderful. We communicated well, had inside jokes, and were very comfortable with each other. But as we entered adulthood, I started asking bigger questions about our future, and I realized I wasn't getting any answers. He was against having kids, but I wanted them. Whenever we talked about the future, he became quiet and would often say he didn't know. This had become a recurring pattern for us. I started feeling more pressure to get answers because we had been discussing marriage and looking for places to live together. But every time I brought up the topic, he would respond with vague answers or avoid it altogether. One weekend, after looking at apartments, I realized I wasn't ready to move in with him. Something inside me snapped, and I knew we weren't on the same page anymore. I ended the relationship even though it broke my heart. He was shocked and didn't understand why I was doing it. He thought everything was perfect. I told him I couldn't commit to him the way he wanted. After a long, emotional talk, he left. I was devastated but knew it was the right thing to do. A few days later, I felt a sense of relief. I realized I had made the right choice. Even though we had a long history together, I couldn't keep waiting for him to change. Now, I'm excited about the future and grateful that I had the strength to make a tough decision.